Welcome to Tech Bites with Dan Hafner, your gateway to the future of innovation and technology. Dive into the exciting world of software where cutting-edge tech meets creativity. Explore no-code solutions that empower businesses to thrive without traditional barriers. Hear inspiring stories from tech pioneers and industry leaders who are changing the game. Join us on Tech Bites and transform the way you think about technology and business.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the No Code Advantage series. Today's episode number 4, validating your no code idea before you build it. So what's the biggest mistake most people make with no code? They spend weeks or months or even longer building something only to realize that nobody wanted it in the first place. Now, what if you could test your idea? You could do it first without wasting a ton of time or money on that idea. In this episode of the No Code Advantage, we're going to break down how to go through this process of validating your no code idea before you build it so you can launch it with confidence. Again, welcome back to the show and the series. My name is Dan Hafner inside of the Tech Bites podcast. This is episode number 4 of the No Code Advantage. In the last one, we talked a little bit about choosing the right no-code tools. Again, if you have not listened to episodes 1 through 3, I highly recommend you go back and check those out. But I hope you got your hands on at least all 3 of the resources so far that are going along with each episode. And there is another resource inside of the show notes here for episode number 4 that I highly recommend. And I'm going to get to that at the end. And we'll talk about that, which is a validation checklist and process. But it won't make sense if we don't walk through this first. So thank you very much for joining me. As always, subscribe to the show, share this show or this episode with anyone you think might find value out of it. So we're going to talk today about validation. It's going to be very, very interesting. And I'm actually going to share a couple of stories of how I have validated ideas successfully and also the times that I didn't. So we're going to share a little bit, we're going to have story time, and I'm going to share with you some of my dirty laundry, and it should be a fun episode. So, all right, let's dive in. What is idea validation, right? It's about proving that there's demand for something before you go and build it, right? I've talked about this before in personal episodes and guest episodes. Is one of the fatal flaws I see of software builders and app builders is that you build things that nobody wants. I've done this myself. I'm going to share that story here in a second. But I think it's a fatal flaw. We all can fall in love with this idea that what we have is the coolest thing ever. But if the market doesn't validate that, then it's not worth the time and the effort and the money to build, right? It's just not. But a common misconception I also see is that, well, I built the MVP. That's my validation. No, you gotta validate before. You validate before even building the MVP. The validation comes even before that, right? So here's my little hack for the leanest validation test that is possible out there. Will someone pay for this? Simple. Period. End of story. Will someone pay money for this? Very simple validation step, right? So one question I've learned to ask myself, and I ask my clients as well, is would at least, 5 people, would 5 or 10 people or businesses buy this solution? Would they buy the solution to the problem that I'm presenting, right? Now, that's one thing for you to say, well, yes, of course, that's true. Now the next step is, okay, I really think as a business or as a ideal avatar that, yes, I would pay for this solution. Okay, that's a great hypothesis. Now let's go find out. Let's go actually put this idea to the test, and let's validate it and see if you actually get market feedback that aligns with that hypothesis, okay? So how do we go about that? The 3-step validation framework, okay? Right, so step 1, find and talk to your idea audience. Seems very simple, right? Identify who your app or your software serves. There's so many different places that you can find, including Facebook groups, Reddit threads, LinkedIn, different school communities, indie hackers, all these different things where that ideal person would be hanging out, would be subscribed to, etc. One thing you can do, I know a lot of people don't go spamming people and doing all this stuff, but you can send individual people DMs or emails or whatever. And the way you want to frame it is like this. Hey, name, I'm working on solving insert the problem. Like, I'm working on solving this problem. Would you be open to a quick chat about how I could possibly do this? Don't mention anything about an app. Don't mention software. Don't mention any of that stuff. You know why? Because nobody wants to test your idea. Not yet anyway, right? So don't make mention, hey, I have this cool app idea. Would you mind talking to me about it? No, that's not something that's going to work. Hey, I'm interested in working on solving this problem. Is that something that you face? If so, I'd be interested in chatting with you. I'm working on a solution for this. That's intriguing. That's a little bit more interesting than, hey, try my little app idea, right? Not an ideal thing. Okay, so step number 1, find and talk to your audience. Step number 2, pre-sell the idea. Now, people get set up of like, well, am I actually collecting money beforehand? Yes, you can. By selling can be different things. Selling can be getting signups. Selling can be getting, commitments, things like that. So don't think it's just selling money, but there's many, many different ways to do this. So you can set up a landing page with we have a waitlist system that we do for our clients. You can set up a pre-order button. You can do all kinds of different things. And there's tons of solutions out there to build this. You can even offer, early bird access or beta test access for certain people who want to sign up for things. This is a really cool way you can leverage your internal network to say, hey, if you are willing to test this out, we're willing to give you a discount on the first year's license, or we'll give you lifetime access, or we'll do something crazy, right? People love that kind of stuff. So then you have the result of, if people pay you money or they sign up for something, you have some validation. If no one bites on this idea, maybe it's time to reconsider. Maybe it's time to think things through, right? We do this with our waitlist step page. If you put out a page and you promote it and you get visits to it and it tracks analytics and you have 500 people visit the page and you get one opt-in, it might be time to reconsider, barring that the page didn't break or something didn't work. But if you have 100 people visit and 70 sign up, okay, now you're onto something. Now there's validation. That is your validation right there, okay? Okay, so the 3-step validation framework I'm working through. Step number 1, find and talk to your audience. Step number 2, pre-sell your idea. And step number 3, run a small test, which is I call it the pre-MVP. It's the MVP before the MVP. We're getting kind of matrixy right now. But here's what's cool about this. We can, instead of building the first full app, you can fake it. You ever hear the saying, fake it till you make it, right? This is kind of along those lines. Now, you can do this in a manual or an automated way. So, for example, I'll go through a couple of examples, right? You want to do like a booking system thing, right? You could use something like a Calendly and a Zapier combination to pull that off. You want to build like a new marketplace idea, right? Build a Google Sheet before you actually launch it. My good friend Alex Sanfilippo built this when he built Podmatch. It started from a Google Sheet and it turned into a software, okay? You're going to have a subscription, right? Offer it as a private or like a Slack group with an email sequence or something like that, right? There's so many different things you can do before you actually go into building software that gets you validation and has this small test to say, okay, this is actually getting, not only did people say they wanted it, but now people are making sure that they're signing up, they're coming into this, they're taking part in it, they're engaging. Now we have a little more traction to go to say, okay, now it's worth to put a little time, a little bit of money, a little bit of effort into building this thing out, right? Okay, so I really like the landing page model for actually running the validation. That's my favorite. The waitlist piece is really, really fun because you can have so many directions to go with the waitlist. But again, this will be on the resource shared at the end of different ways to do this as well, okay? So the next piece I want to talk about in this episode is common validation mistakes to avoid, okay? One thing I see very often is people ask for opinions instead of commitments. So that's number one. You say, hey, I have this really cool idea for this thing. And then someone's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. People want to be nice. People they don't want to come off as like assholes, right? We don't want to like shoot your idea down that you've clearly are very excited for and put some thought into. Nobody wants to do that. There's very, very few people who will do that. Maybe you have someone in your life. That's probably the person to ask. But get commitments, not opinions, right? Hey, instead of saying, I have this cool idea, say, hey, I have this solution that I've put in place, and I'm curious, like, would you pay for something like this? Like, if I was to charge you $100, would you pay for that? I don't know. I mean, maybe. Again, that's not an opinion. A maybe is a kind of a commitment. It's not really a commitment, but it's better than like, oh yeah, cool idea, awesome, have a nice day, right? So focus on commitments, not opinions. Number 2 common validation mistake is building without an audience. One of my recent clients, Stacy, she was building this really cool platform. It's now public, so I can talk about it. It's called Find My People. She is the epitome of building in public. I've never worked with someone who has been so transparent, so bold and courageous about building in public. I mean, we went on multiple calls with her people, her clients, the people she was doing, saying, hey, we're building this thing, after she got validation, of course. And we demoed it with them. We said, hey, like, here's how it works, here's what it does. And we got real-time feedback from people right there on Zoom. And it was amazing. They validated certain things. They said, wow, this is really, really cool. And there was also the bad side of like, well, we don't really like this, or this is kind of silly or stupid or useless. Okay, great. That's great feedback. That is what you exactly need, right? So build with an audience. Don't build in isolation all the time. A lot of us can be guilty of it, that build, software and things like that. I've done this before. But, build in public. It's scary, and it's kind of scary to do, but it's a lot better. I told you I'd share some stories about how I've successfully validated and how I didn't successfully validate. So one of my non-successful validation ideas was, you probably heard me talk about the Trophy Makers app, the taxidermy app that I've built before. When I thought I validated this correctly. Like, I went out and I actually called taxidermists. I'd actually get them on the phone in my area, in different areas, and I talked with them, and I had phone calls with them. I realized, though, I got their opinions of things, not commitments. That was the mistake I made. That's why I mentioned this. And then I also built it without an audience. I just went and I said, okay, would this feature be useful? Would this feature be useful? Would this feature be useful? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So I went and built it. I didn't build it alongside another taxidermist. I didn't build it along someone who would be the ideal customer for this thing, right? That was my mistake. And then the other thing, the successful one was actually very interesting. We built an app called Mini Collector. My wife collects all these little tiny, those like Disney Doorables, those types of things, Shopkins, whatever. We went on to, she was a member of all these Facebook groups, right? Let's see where I'm going back to this. She went on and I went on, and her account and whatever. We got into the groups and said, hey, my husband's building this really cool app idea for me that helps me log all my things and do this and do that and, keep track of the value and trade them in public. Would that be cool? We had hundreds of comments. You have no idea how many people signed up for the app, said yes. Like, it was the single best marketing thing we've ever done in ever, right? But that was before we even built it. So, that was one, bad story of mine, and then, a successful validation story of mine. The other thing, the final common validation mistake I see people make is ignoring small validation wins. Right? This kind of goes back to the social media, like 10, even like one pre-order of your app or your software outweighs 1,000 social media likes. Like, it does. Just if we posted something in that group and we got 100 likes but no comments, no actual traction, I would have said that was a failure. Just because 100,000 people liked our post doesn't translate to actual signups, actual sales, right? So, ignoring those small wins of like, hey, we got 10 people to sign up. Yeah, it was for free, but like, that's a huge win. Celebrate that. That took a lot of work to get to that point, right? So, don't ignore the small things. Don't ignore those small wins, because those really can stack up to be big wins, right? So I just wanted to bring all that to you inside of this validation piece. I want to talk a little bit about the No Code Validation Toolkit, which is the resource I mentioned is available in the show notes for you guys here. It's got all the different tools that you can use for like surveys, feedback, feedback forms, pre-selling stuff, payments, and then the the waitlist landing page things, like that whole process. It's very, very useful toolkit. So definitely be sure to download that in the show notes for yourself. It's completely free. Really, really cool. I think and we're going to keep building that and improving that over time. So I'd be very interested in your feedback and opinions on that. So you can grab that for you guys in the show notes as well. Okay. So be sure to get that in the notes here. In the next episode, we are of the No Code Advantage, at least not in Tech Bytes overall. The next episode of the No Code Advantage, we are going to take a deep dive into building our first no-code MVP. We've now validated the idea. Let's turn it into software and turn this idea into the first working product. It's going to be really, really fun. We might even do some live building, screen share, do some different things. It's going to be really, really fun. So be sure to download the No-Code Idea Validation Playbook below. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the No Code Advantage. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes, your go-to show for software business and technology. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest episodes, insights, and stories. Hungry for more? Dive deeper into the world of no-code by visiting dapanacode.com. Your journey to building amazing software without coding skills starts there. Connect with like-minded creators and unlock a world of resources tailored just for you. Subscribe now. Explore Dapper No Code and let's innovate together.